I feel like Bill Maher may be the last mainstream sane liberal. Okay, maybe that's not true because I think I'm sane, but in terms of big TV networks, Bill Maher has repeatedly pushed back on the social justice warriors, and he's actually defended things about Trump that should be defended. Well, of course, Bill Maher is very critical of Trump, doesn't like him, and has called for a recession. He's repeatedly been put in a position where he has to push back on how crazy many of these left-wing people have gotten. Our story for this segment, liberal author Fran Lebowitz sparks outrage after claiming that Trump deserves to be handed over to the Saudis like journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and then having to backtrack. Now, before we get into the story, make sure you, or if you'd like to, head over to timcast.com/donate if you want to support my work. There's an option for monthly donations. I have Bitcoin cryptocurrency, and I do have a physical address. I'm trying to do better at being, running a business as we're working to expand. So if you'd like to support me, you can do so there. But let's get back to the news and see what happened and why was Bill Maher once again put in this position. Now, I do want to stress, I have the video pulled up, and there's something very important about this interaction. This woman called for ending the life of the president of the United States, and people in the audience clap and cheer. And of course, Bill Maher is forced to push back. The story says, Fran Lebowitz has sparked outrage after saying that President Trump deserves to be handed over to the Saudis to face the same treatment as Jamal Khashoggi, who had his life brutally ended in a very, 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 very terrifying way. The liberal author and Vanity Fair contributing editor, who is 68, made the comments on Friday's edition of Real Time with Bill Maher as she discussed the Mueller report and potential impeachment proceedings against the commander-in-chief. When asked whether she believes Trump should face impeachment, Lebowitz responded, "Impeachment would just be the beginning of what he deserves, not even scratching the surface of what he deserves." She continued, "Whenever I think about this and what he really deserves, I think we should turn him over to the Saudis, his buddies, the same Saudis who got rid of that reporter Khashoggi. Maybe they could do the same for him." I'm now going to play for you the clip, and you can hear the audience response. The audience response is what was actually most shocking to me.
We should turn him over to the Saudis, his buddies, the same Saudis, who got rid of that reporter. Maybe they could do the same for him. I don't know.
It wasn't like the entire audience was doing a standing ovation or anything, but you actually hear people hooting and clapping at the idea. That's insane. And of course, later on in the show, Bill Maher had to push back. Social media was erupting with people actually saying she should face charges for that. Now, I don't know about that. I'm not a legal expert. But that's kind of crazy that on a mainstream television program, you have people calling to end the life of the president. I can't believe... Listen, is this not enough? Okay, when I tell people... when I was on Joe Rogan, I said, I think this is going to result in actual, serious conflict. It's escalating and nothing's being done to stop it. A lot of people roll their eyes and say, you're a doomsayer. I don't care. I don't care if you think I'm a doomsayer. When you have a liberal writer for a major publication appear on HBO live with Bill Maher and say something like that about the president of the United States, if people are going to cheer for that, you see where the rhetoric is taking us. To me, the signs have been clear for a while. Street violence, escalation, the rapid radicalization through social media, it's only going to get worse. That is not, however, why I'm building the van. A lot of people, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm on Instagram at Timcast. I've been posting photos of the van, and it looks awesome. For those that don't know, I am building a van for mobile production so that we can go on the road and I can do more on-the-ground interviews, which I'm going to be doing a lot more on my Tim Pool channel. That's youtube.com/Timcast. Because I don't like doing the stodgy, presenter format anymore. It's just the whole thing. There's got to be changes. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. But there's going to be a lot more on the ground connecting with real people. And it's partly due to things like this. Let me ask you this. You can comment. Do you think that the average American would agree with her? Who are these people in the audience cheering for something like this? And what's crazy to me is, I've never been a big fan of Trump. I understand the chaos vote where people say, they want to burn it down, so they vote for Trump. There are a lot of anarchist types that were advocating voting for Trump because, for one, Hillary is the machine. They don't want her to win. But the idea was that Trump would burn it all down. In fact, the economy is doing really great, so I don't know about that. But the chaos vote exists. who are these people in the audience who are cheering for something like this, right? Because even someone like I would never go chaos vote. I didn't vote for Hillary or Trump. I would have voted for Bernie. But on principle, I don't agree with everything he stands for, but it really is a principle thing. And this is why I've been a big fan of Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm even more so as of late. I don't want to get into too much of that stuff. But Tulsi is very principled, and Andrew Yang is very studious and prepared. I think, unfortunately, the media doesn't like either of them, but Yang is doing really well. Ultimately, the point is, I'm somebody who's looking for a Tulsi or a Yang. I don't like Trump, but my God, how crazy has it gotten that on HBO someone would say something like this? Now, naturally, they had to push back because, that's a crazy comment. It's bordering on illegal. They say Lebowitz swiftly backtracked on her comments later in the program after learning she was receiving criticism on social media. She said, "I didn't realize that I had said that. I had 12 cups of coffee. I regret saying it. I did not mean that, and I regret saying it. No, I disagree. Listen, I will always accept someone's apology. Be it a BuzzFeed writer like we saw recently, be it Joey Salads. I will absolutely say, I accept. Let's move on. But I absolutely have to point out, in this instance, she thought about what she was saying. It's not something that she just came up with off the top of her head. She understood the idea about Saudis, Trump, his allegiances, what they did to Khashoggi, and she said that. To me, it sounds like she harbors these feelings. Now, of course, I think this is good that she's realizing how she crossed the line, and public pushback is a really good thing in this circumstance. But I'd like to stress, I do feel like this sentiment is expanding. It's escalating. I'm going to stress it one more time. This is HBO. Bill Maher and a Vanity Fair writer said they want the president, harmed in this way. To me, that's insane. I mean, look at what Kathy Griffin did. When I say like the rhetoric is escalating, let me ask you something. Trump is going to win 2020. I'm not, I was planning on doing some kind of video about the Australian elections. For those that haven't heard, the center-right party won what was considered to be an unwinnable election for them. It was supposed to go swiftly to the left, to the Labour Party. People are saying it's Brexit and Trump all over again. Trump is going to win 2020. It's possible he doesn't. I'm not a seer or anything. I'm not Nostradamus. Whether or not, okay, that was a dumb analogy. Not like the guy could actually see the future, but I'm not someone who can predict the future. I'm just looking at the evidence. I'm looking at the polls being wrong over and over and over again, and Trump winning. Trump keeps winning. I'm sorry, the right, the nationalists, the right that keeps winning. So Trump's going to win. The economy's doing really well. The polls are always wrong. What do you think these people are going to do when Trump wins another term? What do you think's going to happen when certain long-standing Supreme Court precedent gets overturned as these states pass more and more of these particular laws? I'm not going to get too much into that. Sorry, I have allergies. But I do want to make a couple points before we sign off. Okay, so let's wrap up that thought. Yes, I do think escalation is coming. I am not going to pull an Alex Jones, go buy your gold and prepare, get your MREs. None of that nonsense. I don't know what you should do. I don't know how or when. I just personally think that things are getting crazy. To see this on HBO, it really is worrisome. And I got to say, when I said this a year ago, listen, the street battles are escalating. They're getting crazy. And a lot of people said, yeah, but it's like what inside baseball. It's, only we really know about it. This is HBO. People in the audience were cheering for this. So back to my main point about Bill Maher being the last sane liberal, right? So, he eventually pushes back and he says, you didn't really mean that, did you? And she's like, no. Well, for one, they had to. I don't know if, Bill Maher didn't push back at the moment. That would have shocked me. But I do have a couple more stories I just want to highlight because, you know what, man? I disagree with Maher on a lot of his stances, but I absolutely respect a few of the things, a lot of what he's done. Notably, last week when he said, you can't ignore the fact that Trump has got the economy booming. He says this. He admits in exchange of 2020 Dem, we can't ignore that fact. Absolutely. Good on you, Bill Maher. We also saw this. Bill Maher slams Adam Schiff for stalking Trump after Mueller cleared him. He says if you couldn't impeach him before, how are you going to impeach him after? That's actually a fairly reasonable position, Bill Maher. You don't have to like Trump, but you can point out how absurd everything is. And last but not least, the incessant, I'm saying that somewhat facetiously, Bill Maher repeatedly criticizes the social justice warriors, calling them even a cancer. So I have tremendous respect for Bill Maher in that capacity. Of course, he said things I disagree with. He's called for a recession. Oh, that is absurd, But at least he's now acknowledging that Trump has got the economy booming. But I feel like with the latest. This woman, you see Kathy Griffin with that. I don't want to get into what she did. It's just, the rhetoric is nuts. Absolutely nuts. After Covington, what these journalists were tweeting about, now seeing a mainstream Vanity Fair contributing editor saying this, I feel like at some point Bill Maher is going to be like, what is happening? Right? Because he's like, it's almost like he's kind of warming up to the idea that you don't have to like Trump, but you can still be critical of how crazy everyone's gotten. And I think this might be a sign of how maybe mainstream liberals actually feel in this country. Because think about it. Bill Maher's had to say, hey, the economy is booming, right? That's good for Trump, right? Then he has to criticize the SJWs. He has to criticize Adam Schiff. Eventually, I wonder, I'd love to, hear his thoughts. Do you realize how crazy it has gotten? I feel like he definitely does. And I'd have to point this out, be like, how do you sit there, right? Hearing someone say something like that, hearing the audience cheer and not immediately say, no, stop. Okay, if that were me and someone said that, I'd be like, no, absolutely not. Not on my program. But it happens. And it's later in the program, I have to wonder if it was like a producer who was like, you gotta address that. Because these people are being blinded by how radicalized they've gotten. So, you know what, I'll leave it there. The next video is coming up at 4 p.m. on my main channel, youtube.com/timcast. I'm going to be talking about how... I do this fairly frequently, journalists as activists, but there's a lot of stories as of recent highlighting just how radicalized mainstream journalism has gotten for whatever reason. So I want to talk about how journalists are effectively laundering activist technique and goals through mainstream media. So stick around. That will be youtube.com/timcast at 4 p.m. And for those that are listening on the podcast, it will be up right at some point. I don't know. I don't know where I'm putting it, but maybe next. I'll see you soon.